Okay, let's dive into something really interesting. We're looking at a scientific review that tackles a huge problem for people with chronic pain, that frustrating feeling of brain fog. But what if the key to that mental cloudiness isn't just in the body? What if it's actually all in your head?
And to understand just how big of a deal this is, get this. The research we're looking at points out that about a third, 1 out of every 3 people on the planet, lives with some form of ongoing pain. I mean, that's not some small niche problem. It's a massive global health issue.
But here's where it gets really interesting, and it's kind of the whole point of our investigation today. The physical pain, that's really only part of the story. For so many people, there's something else going on, something that messes with their ability to just think clearly. You've probably heard it called brain fog. It's that maddening feeling of, having trouble with your memory, or you can't pay attention, or it's just impossible to focus. The pain is physical, right? It's in their body. But this fog, this is in their head. So what in the world is the connection?
Okay, so let's lay it out. We've got 2 big things we're looking at here. First, there's the huge, widespread issue of chronic pain. And second, there's this really common complaint about brain fog, or, cognitive impairment.
And this leads us to the big central question. Could the way we think about our pain, how we process it mentally, actually be what's causing that fogginess in our heads? That is the exact mystery this scientific review set out to solve.
All right, every good mystery needs a prime suspect. And in this story, to solve the puzzle, we need to get to know a very specific psychological pattern researchers have zeroed in on. It's called pain catastrophizing.
Now, this is way more than just, feeling pain. The scientific definition here points to a very specific mindset. It's this tendency to magnify the threat of pain, to feel totally helpless, and to be completely unable to stop thinking about it. It just replays over and over in your head. And this pain catastrophizing isn't just one big blob of a feeling. It actually breaks down into 3 separate parts. First up is magnification. That's when you exaggerate the threat of the pain. Then you've got rumination, which is that endless, non-stop loop of thinking about the pain. And finally, there's helplessness, that awful sinking feeling that there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. So, there you have it. The hypothesis is crystal clear. This whole pattern of thinking, this pain catastrophizing, is our prime suspect. It might just be the thing that's directly causing the brain fog that so many people are dealing with.
But, like any good detective story, the case wasn't a slam dunk. Not at all. When scientists first started digging for hard evidence to connect our suspect to the crime, the trail got real confusing real fast. So this review we're talking about, it gathered up the evidence from 30 different scientific studies that had tried to figure this out. I mean, that's a ton of data from a whole bunch of different research teams. And the big problem they found? The results were all over the place. Some of those 30 studies? Yeah, they found a clear link. The more a person catastrophized, the worse they did on cognitive tests. But then, a whole bunch of other studies found, nothing. No significant connection whatsoever. The evidence was totally split.
In fact, the authors of this big review put it pretty bluntly. They said the evidence for a link between PC, that's pain catastrophizing, and cognition was, and I quote, variable. I mean, for years, scientists just couldn't agree. It was like the connection was there one minute and gone the next.
So, this was a huge roadblock. The trail just went cold. Why were the results so contradictory? You have to wonder, right? Was our main suspect actually innocent? Or were the detectives just missing a crucial piece of the puzzle?
And this is where the review we're looking at has its big breakthrough moment. The researchers finally figured out exactly why all that evidence was so messy. It turns out our suspect, pain catastrophizing, was the right one all along. The problem wasn't the suspect. The problem was that most of those studies, they were investigating the wrong people. They weren't looking at patients with high enough levels of this thing to actually see the effect.
See, to find the real connection, scientists needed to focus on people with what they call clinically relevant levels of catastrophizing, basically levels that are high enough to be a serious issue. And they measure this with a standard tool, the Pain Catastrophizing Scale, or PCS. And the magic number, the key threshold, is a score over 30.
So, armed with this insight, the reviewers went back to those 30 studies. And here comes the bombshell. Out of all those studies, how many do you think actually focused on patients who scored above that critical 30-point mark?
Just 4. Only 4 of them.
And guess what those 4 studies found? Every single one found a significant link to cognitive impairment. The connection was there the whole time. It just gets hidden unless you look at the group where this thinking pattern is at its most severe. Boom. Mystery solved.
Okay, so we found our culprit, case closed, right? Well, not exactly. What does this all mean? What do we do with this information? Because this is about way more than just solving a neat scientific puzzle. This has some serious real-world implications.
This review really laid out why the truth was hidden for so long. First, like we said, they were studying the wrong people, patients without high enough scores. Second, get this, across those 30 studies, they used 45 times different cognitive tests. 45! That makes it basically impossible to compare apples to apples. And lastly, most studies just looked at the overall score, ignoring the subparts, like rumination versus helplessness, which could have told them so much more.
So because of all these issues, the paper is basically calling for a retrial. It's saying, hey, future research needs to get this right. We need to focus on patients with those clinically relevant scores. We have to use the same standardized test so we can compare results. And we've got to analyze the specific pieces, the rumination, the helplessness, to see what's really going on.
And this is the part that really truly matters. Think about it. A lot of the best therapies for chronic pain, like cognitive behavioral therapy, require a ton of mental energy. You have to focus, you have to learn new things, you have to apply new skills. What this research suggests is a really cruel catch-22. The very mindset that comes with severe pain might be draining the exact cognitive battery you need to get better.
And that leaves us with the biggest, most important question of all. It's a huge challenge, not just for patients, but for doctors too. If this mindset is draining the very mental energy you need for therapy, how on earth do you break that cycle? How do you untangle that knot? That, right there, is the next critical puzzle we need to solve.